Hello, lifers. Hey, welcome back to the Live the Life podcast. I am your host, Eric Aroca. Hey, awesome to be here with you guys again. I gotta say, it's been a lot of fun following March Madness. For several years, I have not followed the NCAA men's basketball really at all. Just kind of have lost interest in it over the years. In basketball in general, I don't even follow the NBA anymore. But back in the day, in my younger days, I was pretty fanatical about the March Madness bracketology. And hope your brackets are doing well. So let me know in the comments how your bracket is doing, how you're doing in the office pool. Let me know how it's going. So I'll give you an update. Let's see. In the Final Four, I have 3 out of the 4. So the only one I don't have is Florida in the Final Four. I do not have them on there. I had UConn, so I missed on that one. But I do have Auburn. I do have Duke and Houston. And, of course, at this point, I've got to go for the Houston Cougars. Got to root for them to win it this year. So I have them advancing, playing Auburn in the chip. So we'll see how that goes. But let me know how you're doing with your brackets. I just got to say it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. And I can't wait for it to be over. Because that just means that football season is one day closer. And let's face it, it's really all about football. So, there's that. The other thing is, yesterday, I did send out the final approval for the new cover of Live the Life You've Always Imagined. So remember, this is the old one. I'm not going to show you the new one till it's ready. Probably next episode, I will give you guys a little peek of the new cover. I'm pretty excited about it. Can't wait to show it to you guys. I think it kind of gives the book a fresh new look, and it kind of ties it in with the podcast. So there, I've given you some hints for the cover of the book. But so stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out soon. And then really, we are almost there with the book in itself. So there's a couple of pieces that I need to add to the book that got left out from the original manuscript. So I got to do that this week, and then the book will be ready to go. So hopefully within the next 10 days, I know I said that 5 days ago, but hopefully within the next 10 days, we'll get that done. I do have my parents in from Utah visiting this week, so I'm really going to have to be diligent about getting it done. But I'll make it happen this week. Because I want to get this out to you guys the sooner the better. So be looking for that. Thanks for all of the love, support you guys have given me on social media channels, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the stuff. Instagram, I really love all the love you guys have shown. Keep it coming. If you like the content of this podcast, please subscribe. Help us grow as a podcast, as a channel. Share it with your friends. Let them know about it. It's greatly appreciated. But I super appreciate all of your support, because this is episode, oh my gosh, episode 10. Here we go. Super excited about it. So last week we talked a little bit about the first 2 principles of the Live the Life principles, right? Of the principles that you need to live. That's easy for me to say. The principles that we need to live in order to live that life that we've imagined. And the first 2 principles were to dream more and to learn more, right? We talked about the importance of visualization and seeing yourself actually doing those things or accomplishing those things. And then the power of learning, right? Of taking every opportunity to learn, whether it's through a book, through a podcast, through a tutorial on YouTube, whether it's formal schooling, vocational school, however you are going to learn more, we want to be taking every opportunity to learn more to help us bridge that gap. So today's episode, we're really going to talk about doing more and becoming more. And yes, when I said do more or doing more, I actually heard your eyes roll to the back of your head. All right, because that is the exact reaction I get many times whenever I give the Live the Life You've Always Imagined keynote on stages, wherever I've been. Every time I say, okay, guys, now principle number 3, you've got to do more. People are just like, ugh, like, come on, dude, do more of what? Like, aren't I doing enough already, right? So I want to set you at ease. It's really not about doing more or filling your already overflowing plate with more stuff. It's really about identifying the things that you do well, the things that make you successful, and doing more of those things. Okay? So it's not about doing more. It's about doing more of the things that make you successful. So I want to just share a quick story with you guys. When my son was young, he was probably, I want to say between 10 and 12 years old, he started playing baseball. He had been playing City League, but then he moved up to play on a travel team. And all of you travel sports parents out there, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, hey, you're paying all this money, and before you know it, you find yourself in another state in some hotel room going to baseball games or whatever your kid does. It's a lot of fun. I gotta say, I really enjoyed being able to drive my son to different tournaments and go see other places and visit different states. It was a lot of fun. But when he started playing baseball, or when he started playing for this travel team, they were kind of like the Bad News Bears. I mean, to be honest with you, they were not very good as a unit, as a team. They had a lot of Bad News Bears in them. And for those of you who don't understand that reference, just go Google it. You'll get it. But one interesting thing that happened was their coach took a different approach because, my son pitched. He also played short. He played first. He played a little second, a little third, played some outfield. But primarily, he was at short and pitching. And, he worked on a lot of pitches. He had a really good fastball. He had a great curveball. But he wanted to really master throwing the off-speed pitch. Right? It's that fake pitch that's coming at you really fast, but in reality, it's just barely got enough momentum to make it across the plate and to stay elevated. So he worked on quite a few pitches, that one being one of them. And I think a lot of the kids on the team had kind of the mindset that in order to get better as a team, they really had to work on their weaknesses, on the things that they weren't doing well. But the coach had a different approach. At one practice, I remember he sat the whole team down and he told them, he actually pointed them out one by one and told the kids what they needed to start doing. And he pointed out what they did really well. He told a particular boy who was kind of bigger than all the other boys, he had hit the most home runs up to that point in the season. And he just told that kid, he's like, hey, I want you to hit more home runs. Every time you go up to the plate, I want you to think I'm hitting a home run. I'm not trying to get on base. I'm not just hit a home run. And he told, something to every single kid. He told my son to stop throwing the off-speed pitch. But he also told him to throw the curveball and the fastball because that's where he excelled. Those are the two pitches that made him successful as a pitcher. Okay? So I want you to think about the dynamics of that. Because when I was growing up, I was always taught that in order to improve, in order to get better, that you had to work on your weaknesses. But if our weaknesses are here and our strengths are here, the things that make us successful, if you're really working on elevating your weaknesses, all you're doing is diminishing your strengths because you place so much attention on trying to improve your weaknesses. So we have an off balance. Things are not right. But watch what happens when we work on our strengths. When we live in our strengths, it automatically elevates our weaknesses. And that's what we should be trying to do. That's what my son's baseball team did. And it wasn't just the players, it was also the coaches. The three coaches that were on the squad, they figured out what they were really good at coaching. Some kids, some of the coaches were really good at batting practice and teaching the kids how to hit. Another coach was really great on teaching them how to field the ball correctly. Another one was really great to help them with the mechanics on the mound and helping the pitchers. And so they all lived to their strengths. And so at practice, we didn't just have kids trying to improve their strengths. We also had the coaches doing the exact same thing. So kind of like leading by example, right? Well, the result was, they didn't win the championship, but they started playing really, really well together. We went to several tournaments where they did well, where they just played better. In their own league, they finished much higher in the standings than they would have had they not made that significant change along the way throughout the season. So I think that is a valuable lesson for us, is be aware of what your weaknesses are, but I really want you to make a list of your strengths, of the things that make you successful, and I want you to do more of that. For example, one of the things that makes me successful is sharing stories. Whether that's sharing stories with my kids. I mean, if you ask my kids, they'll tell you that they are constantly asking me to share stories of my younger years, or to share stories of my travels, and to share stories of different experiences I've had. And they're constantly, and they've heard these stories over and over again, but it's not that the story itself is any magnificent thing. It's how I tell the story, right? I have an ability to tell stories and to share those stories. And so my kids are always asking me to share stories. So that's one of the things that makes me successful, is having that ability and that opportunity to share stories with them, or with my coworkers, or when I go get on stage, or when I go do a training, or whether I'm writing a book. I want to be sharing stories because it helps make me successful. Okay? So that's really what I want you to do when we talk about doing more, is don't worry about your weaknesses. Pay a lot of attention to your strengths. Live in your strengths 80% of the time, and just be aware that you have these weaknesses. But I promise you that as you live in your strengths, you will elevate your weaknesses. And then you're going to have balance. You're not going to be off balance. You're going to have balance. And that's what we're striving for. Okay? All right. Let's see. There is a quote in the book. When it says to do more, the quote is, it's by me, yours truly. Hope is not a strategy, commitment is. And so as you strive to do more of the things that make you successful, I want you to be committed to actually doing those things. I want you to have fanatic discipline in doing those things. Okay? Fanatic discipline or fanatic commitment to you doing more. It goes a long way for us to be consistent in trying to do more, because you're doing the right things, you're doing the things that make you successful. So if you're consistently doing those things, hey, the results are going to be beautiful. You're going to get the results that you want, that you're striving for. Some additional things to consider doing as you embark on this journey of doing more is try to eliminate some of the distractions, right? I mean, we all have, I think everyone's number one distraction is probably our phones, because there is so much tied to our telephones. So much of our life is tied to the phone. But try to limit some of those distractions so that when you are in the act of showing that fanatic discipline of doing more, that you can give it its full attention, that you can live in the moment as you're trying to do more, as you're trying to do those things that make you successful. So try just to eliminate some of those distractions. Maybe set a limit on how much time you're going to be on TikTok or on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is. Set a limit. Try to eliminate some of those distractions. Create a system. I think that once we create a system for us to do those things, then it helps us to be more consistent also. And then measure and adjust as you move forward. You know, if we go back to my son's baseball, every single, I think my son practiced three times a week, and they usually had games on Saturday. So I think their practices might have been like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or sometimes Thursday, but they had games on Saturdays. But in order to be fanatic, to show fanatic discipline, my son did a few things. He would go out and we would play catch. In fact, we went out and bought full catcher's gear. And I've never played baseball before, but we went out and bought the mask. I had the catcher's mitt. I had the pads for my legs, the whole 9 yards. You know, the big pad thing for your chest, for your torso. I wore all that stuff as we would play catch in the backyard. He would just simply pitch to me because he wanted to show that fanatic discipline. He also watched a ton of baseball games, and back then he was a big Yankees fan. And so I watched a lot of Yankees games, and he really paid attention. He wasn't watching games just for fun, but rather for learning, right? For improvement. And so measure and adjust. So along the way, he started to measure, right? He noticed that he was striking out more kids, that he as many kids weren't hitting home runs off of him or getting hits off of him, because he could measure that. He could start figuring out, oh man, when I throw that curveball or fastball, I'm striking more kids out. So you could measure that. The coaches also did a very good job of measuring the kids' progress in how they were doing in living in their strengths. And so the coaches did a really good job of doing that. And they could share, different reports or different statistics with the kids on how they were doing. Hey, that one particular kid, I don't remember how many home runs he hit, but he hit a lot more home runs than he would have had they not made that change, right? All of the pitchers improved because they could measure the mechanics, they could measure the output, they could measure the strikeouts, but also make some fine-tune adjustments as you're going through. Don't be so rigid that there's no room for flexibility or to make adjustments. So make those small adjustments as you move forward when needed, so that you can have ultimate success. All right, the last principle that we talk about in the book is to become more. Now, I want to share this picture. Sophie, can we see this picture? If I put it right there. You see that? All right, I hope you guys can see this. This is a picture that I took in the redwood forest in Northern California. So, first of all, if you haven't had a chance to get out to the redwood forest in Northern Cal, hey, take the opportunity and go. It's pretty amazing. It is awesome. The reason why I included this picture was because those trees, I mean, they are massive. Those redwoods are pretty dang big, pretty dang tall. And, but they had to become that, right? They didn't start off life being that big. They started off as a seed and then a sapling, and eventually they grew to be that. Okay? So that's a good reminder for us that you're not going to just become more because you say that you want to. It's going to take some time. So be patient with yourself. Be patient along the journey of living the life you've always imagined, because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Sometimes from the outside looking in, we feel like, oh, that person's had success overnight, or, oh, they, like things just happened for them. But the reality is, it's the same for all of us. It takes time. So be like those redwood trees. Just be diligent in growing. Be diligent in learning. Be diligent. Have that fanatic discipline to stay the course. And with time, you will become more. You almost automatically become more just by living the first three principles. I'm actually convinced that if you are dreaming more, visualizing, if you are taking the time to learn more, if you're doing more of the things that make you successful, guess what, guys? You will actually become more all by itself. Okay? But I want you to be really intentional about becoming more. So the quote that I used at the beginning of the chapter is by motivatequotes.com. So there wasn't another author. It was just one of their quotes. But their quote says, we can have more than we've got because we can become more than we are. Again, we can have more than we've got because we can become more than we are. So this is just a great reminder that it is not a sprint. This journey is literally going to take you time. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So take your time, enjoy the journey, enjoy each and every principle of dreaming more, of learning, of doing more. Enjoy every phase of that journey, because I really, truly want you to enjoy becoming more. If I look back at my life and I look back to when I was, in my early 20s, in my 30s even, I really can't believe the progression that has happened in that time. And I don't think we feel that progression when we're in the middle of it, when we're, in the thick of it. I really don't feel like we notice it, but give it enough time, you can always look back and say, wow, I've really matured, or I have really grown in these areas. And that's what will happen, right? As you become more, that's what will happen. So don't get discouraged. Stay the course. These are the founding principles that have allowed me, a dyslexic kid who didn't graduate high school, these are the founding principles that allowed me to graduate high school, to overcome dyslexia. I mean, you see all of my good friends behind me. I've mentioned it more than once. I got and 25 of my buddies back here. And it's something that I overcame. I learned how to do it. I could dream, or I could visualize myself reading, right? I could visualize myself turning the pages on a book. I learned all that I could about dyslexia and how to overcome it. And then I did more of the things that made me successful. Hey, I read comic books. Back then, magazines were a big thing. I read magazines. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I used to have stacks and stacks of magazines. I started reading books. And so naturally, you become more. It wouldn't have become any of this had I not been on that path, had I not taken that journey. So remember, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But you can do it. Show that fanatic discipline, and be consistent in trying to become more. These are the same principles that I use for my leadership model. When I started giving keynotes about leadership, it's one of those things that always kind of like, I always thought like, do we really need another person talking about leadership? Because man, I can't even tell you how many. And how many things can you say about leadership that are new, right? I mean, you kind of hear the same things over and over and over and over again about leadership. I wanted to do something a little bit different. And not that mine is really original by any means, but it was a way that I could express what leadership means to me and how I could teach leadership. So as I thought about it, leadership for me starts with the individual. And so I really wanted to make these core principles my leadership model. So in my book that's going to be coming out, The 4 Acts of Leaders, which probably won't be out till next year sometime, these are the 4 principles that I'm going to be talking about. But rather than in a self-help area, really going to be targeted towards leaders, right? How do you use those principles in a leadership setting, right? Because the quote says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and to become more, then you are a leader. So you guys can be expecting that. That is my leadership model. These are the principles that I have lived to achieve everything I have ever achieved in my life. Serving my Savior on an LDS mission in Mexico for 2 years. Trust me, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Getting married, overcoming dyslexia, having kids, starting a career, being laid off. It's been a ride. It has been a ride. But the things that have made me successful is living a principled life, not a life of hacks. TikTok is famous for it. Instagram is famous for it, right? Hey, I enjoy watching hacks, okay? But hacks change over time. Principles never change. They are the same today. They'll be the same 1,000 years from now, okay? So live a principled life. I can promise you guys that the results that you want, you'll get the results that you want if you live a principled life. So I want you to remember that you can live the life you have always imagined. It is up to you and only you. So go out there and live the life you have always imagined.